So, I'm John. This is Paul.
Paul.
Paul was recently promoted to be the general manager of Joss & Main in North America, so he's no longer just the senior director of marketing. But let me start with a story. So I used to be a consultant for many years, and one of my clients was one of the senior merchandisers at a big box store, and for many years she had been one of the key merchandisers at Saks Fifth Avenue. And if any of you know brick and mortar retail, and you know those charts that show gross margin dollars per square foot, retail space efficiency, you know that Saks Fifth Avenue's flagship store is by far the most productive store in the universe. I mean, maybe there's a Costco somewhere that beats them or something like that, but basically, they have completely cracked the code on driving retail productivity and the one metric that really matters. So we were working very hard together. And she said to me one night, she said, look, we're way too deep in the data. This stuff doesn't really matter. And I said, well, what matters? She said, stories. Telling stories matters. That's what retailers do. And so I'm going to tell you a story today about telling stories online, and we're going to link it back to the kind of productivity metrics that drive all of our decision making, that drive actually what we do as web merchants, as web product managers, as business owners. But just to introduce Joss & Main, for those of you who aren't familiar, it's a private event or flash sales business that sells home goods. It sells furniture, decor, vases, pillows, some decorative accents. You could buy personal accessories, occasionally jewelry. And we aim to delight. I think every retailer says that they want to delight. That's what, surprise and delight. It's one of these great old mantras. But I think that it's something that we focus on as a core part of our business model: theater, drama, storytelling. And I think you're going to hear a story today that links those together with developing a mobile agenda. We're going to take you through a fair number of specifics about how we made decisions. But first, I want to introduce the business. We're going to talk about our story, but we're going to get into prioritizing resources and delivering results, and then link it back to the story. So the things that you're going to hear are never forget the consumer. And I think that the last discussion about understanding who's trying to do what where, what kind of emotional benefit are they getting, right? What are they actually trying to accomplish? Is this a replacement for a magazine, a catalog, going to a store? You're saving time? And if you don't have that in the back of your head, you're going to develop flat applications. You're going to develop flat applications that are always stuck behind this haze of pixels and never quite deliver on the actual real-world goals that the consumer has. Content commerce, super hot right now. I think for a lot of people, that means delivering stories over here and commerce over here. And we're going to talk a bit about some of the ways in which we try to bring them together, because that's actually the way in which you extract value as a merchant from putting all those resources into content. We're going to talk about living on the left brain and the right brain. I can never remember which is which. But it's really important to be balanced. And I think far more so, again, given that haze of pixels that we all live behind, that you actually have to have a team that gets the emotional benefit, the consumer insights, and understands how you're going to deliver that in a world of metrics, in a world where the purchase funnel is ever more granularly definable and measurable than in any brick and mortar setting. And the final thing is to be relentless. As you'll hear, one of the key defining things that we think about at Joss & Main is to be gracious. And so we had to put in our nice, gracious handwriting that low ROI is a failure. So we're trying to say that graciously. But we mean it very, very seriously. We always like to talk about welcoming our members, welcoming our customers into our home, just as they're going to use the products they buy from us to welcome their guests and their family into their home. But all that said, we're running businesses. And if you can't be relentless about redefining your decision matrix in terms of how you're going to prioritize resources, you're going to end up with some pretty low ROI activities. And in a world of change, as we've all heard about, it's really hard to constantly be redefining those priorities, constantly be redeploying your resources. So, quick story, Wayfair started as CSN Stores, now at a $1 billion run rate. We bootstrapped to $300 million, meaning we didn't take a dime of outside investment. We're taking the funding that we recently raised from a great set of investors to pursue branding, international growth, and new business lines. Jost & Main was just a brand new business line 2.5 years ago. It was an experiment. We didn't know if it would work. 5 million members in 2.5 years, over $200 million run rate. We're very, very happy with the success we've had. And I think that the approach, the left brain, right brain approach you'll hear about today, is actually what's delivered that. So what do? Every day we provide inspiration. What do people want when they're shopping for their home? They don't buy these things very often. When was the last time anyone in this room bought a sofa? You don't buy these things very, very often. If you're a frequent sofa purchaser, you're my best friend. But I don't think there are very many in this world. And so we deliver inspiration. We have consumers who love reading our site. We do focus groups. I talked to this woman a couple months ago, and she said, I log into your site every night to read. I said, I'm an e-commerce company. What are you doing? But that's fantastic. That's exactly the experience that we want to deliver. If a consumer is going to stop by your store every day, she's going to buy something sometime. Then she's going to come back because you're delivering value to her all the way up and down the value chain. So we take inspiration. What's inspiration? Everyone has coffee table books on their coffee table. Everyone has catalogs. I don't know if anyone's received the recent restoration hardware catalogs. They're amazing. It's like having an art book on your table. Why do they do that? They do that because it's a phenomenal experience to take a consumer through stories. So what do? We take stories. We run a photo studio. We work with the best curators, the best bloggers, the best designers to find inspiration. And we turn it into e-commerce. So this is an example of an image. It's actually a crop from an image. And on the right, you'll see the products that we sold. So we take that inspiration and we make it accessible. Here's an idea, a story you can fall in love with. Home products don't sell themselves as products. There's no sofa that just on a white background is going to sell itself. It has to be a story. That white table, alone on a white background, devoid of any context, no one's going to buy it. But in that picture, with that image, with that emotion, with that story, makes it immediately accessible to the consumer. We tell stories. We don't just, sell events. We invited our consumers last October to explore 6 perfect holiday palettes. This spring, new season, new style. We said, pick who you are. Right? This is classic direct response marketing. It says, make a choice up the funnel. Ask the consumer to make a choice to self-identify, and they'll follow you all the way down the funnel and make a purchase. And guess what? It works like magic. And then, as I said, we take our content. So sure, we have a blog. We have a magazine. It's called Plume. We're very proud of it. But we take that content that we develop and we integrate it. So what you're seeing is actually a slice of our product, a slice of our browse page. And you'll see content, like these stylist's tips that are integrated in every day so that the consumer can read. But what does she have to do while she's reading? She has to be looking at product. So we're making an exchange with the consumer. It's basic anthropology. Offer someone something for free, and in return, ask them to browse your product. And so what happens? People ask for more. If I feel like if I miss my email, I'm missing some inspiration. I mean, how many people in this room have been asked for more marketing emails by their consumers? Please market to me more. How do I share your events? Right? I'm not sure how I can actually engage in viral marketing for you. Can you please help me engage in viral marketing? What do I love? I love Joss and Main. Uh-oh, I just discovered Joss and Main. This is kind of core to what we're trying to deliver to the consumers. So Paul's going to take us through, all right, that's great, we've got a ways in. How do we do that in mobile?
Thanks, John. Hey, everybody, I'm Paul. I'm the general manager of Joss and Main. That's a new title in the last 2 weeks. Feels weird to say it. And I was formerly the director of marketing, so I apologize for our speech title, Applying the Appropriate Resources to Implement an Effective Mobile and Tablet Site Strategy. If we bored you to tears, I understand. We'll try better next time. So I'll start by saying that everything that John just said was true, and the way that we've built up our business on top of content is 100% true, but I'll also be the other side of the brain. So if John is Apollo 11, which I often call him, I am Houston. So he says, let's go do these big, bold things, and I say, okay, well, how will we actually do that? So another part of Wayfair.com and of our entire business is we're extremely rigorous direct marketers at our core. That's how we bootstrapped to 300 million, and it's also how we've grown our entire organization, Joss and Main included, to $1 billion company this year. So talking about that paradigm, right, we think of it in two ways. We think, how can we create an experience that's going to bring customers to the site every day, whether they're purchasing or not? How do we create an editorial experience? Create something that people just voluntarily subscribe to because they want to get the content? But we also say, okay, if low ROI is a failure, we've got two options, right? One is we can either increase the return, or two is we can lower the investment. And so as we think about building our product, and as I talk through the experience that we had, bringing an iPhone app and an iPad app and a mobile website to market, sort of we'll present that on both sides. This speech will be geared a little bit more towards people who are thinking about getting into mobile. If you've already got all three, there's probably not a ton that I'm going to tell you that you don't already know. But so when we were going into this problem, we had this website, people love to shop it. We said, we know we've got the content that people want, but we're resource constrained. We're a startup. We're 14 months into even existing on the internet. How are we going to build this site and this experience for our users? I'm going to go ahead and put our timeline up on the screen, but to provide a little bit more context, the team at the time that we started, we kicked up in about March of last year, and it was 2 engineers and about 20% of my time. And that was it. So we didn't have a UX or UI person. We didn't have a dedicated design person. We had 2 folks that we hired from the outside that had app development experience, but we're definitely engineers, and we're not product folks. And that was the team. For some people, you might be saying, well, that's a ton of folks. Other people might be saying, like, that's no one. We made a lot of trade-offs along the way, and the timeline is up here, so I'll sort of give you guys the punchline first. We spent about 4 months getting our iPhone app out to market, right? So that's what 1.0 was. 1.1 was an incremental release that put push notifications out for us. 1.2 was when we released our universal app. So that was about 4 months after iPhone that we got iPad out there. And then just last month, we finally got to mobile web. So, the timeline was, I would say, fairly aggressive. It wasn't over the top. We didn't over-resource this project. We couldn't. We're still not, we're kind of the little brother at Wayfair.com, so we get what we get, and we sort of deal with it. And that's how we got sort of where we are. So, as part of that design process, we talk about, okay, well, how do we keep our investment very low? Whoops, didn't mean to press that button. So we talk about keeping our investment very low. So we said, okay, well, we've got 2 engineers, we've got 20% of my time, and no one else. Our wireframing, no joke, was literally done by me and John, basically in PowerPoint. So I don't know if anyone here is like a product person that uses, well, honestly, I don't know the software because we don't have it, but PowerPoint's not a great place to wireframe huge features for your customers. Actually, it's terrible. But we sort of dealt with it, and so it got us where we needed to be. But the other major part of keeping your investment down is making sure that your variable costs stay low, right? And so what does that mean? It means when we talk about production on our site, we have assets that we're creating every day. As a flash sale retailer, our team is launching 6,000 new products a week from scratch, right? That's a factory-style production line that if we added incremental assets that we needed to produce on top, the factory would basically shut down. So if the users or the workers didn't actually just go on strike, it would create additional timelines, right, that we just couldn't support, and we couldn't get additional headcount. So I think probably there are some people in this room that have a very similar situation. So we said, okay, the way that we're going to keep our investment down is we're going to make sure the variable costs stay at zero, and we're only going to leverage assets that already exist. So you can see up on the slides, we've got our event images that come in a couple different aspect ratios. We've got our event names, we've got our event taglines, product names, prices, descriptions, et cetera, right? All very sort of common e-commerce things, and we're not going to add a single thing on top of that, period. So when you start your app development process, you've got this whole world right in front of you. Say, like, what can we do? How can we make this the best mobile experience? How can I make sure that 100% of people are now shopping for furniture on their phone and it's only on Jocelyn Main? No, we sort of narrowed ourselves from the start and said, this is what we're going to go with. And so the other major piece here when we're doing that is we're saying, okay, now that we know what our constraints are from the resource side, where do we put our focus, right? And this is where the kind of quantitative, data-driven marketer, product developer comes in. Let's focus on our funnel and let's improve it where it's terrible, right? So you can see what we've got. This is a comparison of, at the time, desktop funnel progression to mobile funnel progression, which was also on the desktop site. I've also included a screenshot of checkout because it's very obvious on these slides. We're okay in the top of the funnel. Actually, through the product page, people were browsing on mobile the same way that they were browsing on web. And once they got to checkout, it was terrible, right? It bombed. So we said, okay, we're going to build a native app because we know that the majority of our shoppers are on iOS. Android for us, honestly, is a drop in the bucket. So it was never really a consideration that we had to make. How do we support Android? iOS was where all of our traffic was coming from. And that honestly made our decision very easy. But you can see, right, let's make a native app. Let's make the shopping experience better around the fringes, but mostly do no harm up until checkout, at which point let's develop a native experience that's way, way better than the mobile web. And so you can see that through these screenshots. We've got a screenshot of our homepage next to a screenshot of our homepage on the phone, right? And so really the changes there, I mean, we took some spacing out vertically. We changed the image aspect ratio of our event images, and we increased the font size on the event name. But other than that, right, nothing major changed here. And if you look through our funnel progression, you'll see the same thing. Event images, tell the story very well. We knew that product imagery is a big thing that people shop when we talk about content at Jocelyn Main. Like, that's what we're talking about. So we pulled that forward a little bit. We took out product names because we didn't think that they added to the visual browsing experience as much as just getting more products on the page would. And then you look at the product page as well, right? We pull that image front and center. You cannot really see, but the product details just continue if you would scroll down. And then finally, checkout. So this is checkout on mobile, and if we back up 2 slides, you can see that's what checkout used to look like. That's what checkout looks like now. So it's the one area of our shopping experience that we fundamentally went back and redesigned. And the results actually were exactly what we were hoping for. So you can see we pushed up funnel progression on our event and our product pages, and we had an extremely dramatic improvement in our purchase rate on the phone, right? Which is exactly what you would expect when you sort of compare the mobile site or the mobile app to the site. That's what we focused on, and that's where we drove results. The interesting thing was that the reviews that we got in the App Store were not what we were expecting. Not that they weren't positive, but they were actually coming back and our users were saying, hey, this is so great, I don't like shopping on your desktop site anymore. And so that was sort of great feedback that we got and something that was going to power our sort of decision making down the road, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So the next step was iPad, right? I think a lot of people will take this progression. You'll do phone first, then you'll do iPad. Maybe I guess that was an assumption, but that's what we did, so I can talk to it, right? And so we had our assets, we had the same product assets, and now we had 3 new assets, which were the pages that we just built on our phone, right? So we were saying, let's not just leverage the production product assets. Let's actually leverage the engineering assets that we just built and make this universal app sort of easy to get to market. So you can see the event scroller on the iPad is actually the exact same functionality and technology as the event scroller in the phone. It's now just to the left of the product page, or the browse page. And our users love this because they said, we can get wherever we want to go from this page. I can shop and switch between events at the same time. It was an unexpected consequence of us sort of cutting corners. Similarly, if you look at the product page, we've really only adjusted the layout. So you've got your product image now on the left and the description on the right. But again, rocket science, this is not. We just needed to fill up a little bit more of the screen. And finally, and most unapologetically, we took checkout and didn't change anything. We literally took checkout and put it on an iPhone-sized modal in the middle of the iPad screen. Because we knew that it was working on mobile. We knew that it was a tappable, productive part of the interface on mobile phone, and we knew that we had limited resources and we wanted to get to market, right? So let's put it out there. Let's see what happens. Worst case, we have to rebuild it, but there's really no harm. And in doing so, that gave us a little bit more time to develop, the John side of the business, the brand side of the business, where we can go and tell that editorial story better. So you'll see we've got our homepage, which is a custom build. We've got lookbooks, which put editorial inside the events, right? So that you can approach customers from both angles. And the reviews were great. iPad came out. People said, we love shopping on this. This is so much better than your tablet experience. We were very happy sort of with the results. And you can see it come through in the results the same way. Again, funnel progression up top, better than before, but, sort of marginal improvements. And at the purchase level, you're getting more than 3x as many users to purchase as you were before. So it's obviously something that we're very happy with, right? And I think we want to spend a little bit of time talking about mobile web, but if I had one thing to say, it's that, as we thought about at the upstream, back to March or February of last year, when we were making the decision, how do we want to approach this? We said, okay, well, Android isn't a big part of our user base. And so we made a decision up front, let's go with iOS and let's go with native, right? Some people, that might not be the right decision for everyone else. But in doing so, it really deprioritized mobile web for us. Because on day-to-day, right, 10% of our visits now are from mobile web. They're on devices that generally indicate to us that users are lower quality than the average. And so while we want to eventually get to it, it's just not as high of a priority. And when we did get to it, we, again, didn't reinvent the wheel. So here we had the same assets. Now, when you're building in HTML5 and you're putting CSS against this, it's not the same as building a native app. But we didn't actually even really redo the wireframes to speak of. We took our iOS app layout, for the most part, and reskinned it to be a little bit more brand consistent with where we are today. Again, this launched in July. And you can see, right, the same basic sort of framework of the UI here. You can see it carry through again, to checkout. There's some marginal changes here. We go 2 across on the product page to get those images even more front and center with our customers, or sorry, on the browse page. You know, checkout, we added a persistent button at the bottom of the screen so that no matter where you're scrolling in your order entry form, you can always place order right there with your thumb. But we didn't change a ton, right? And the results, again, mirror pretty much exactly what we'd seen in the other 2 platforms. So we saw a 3.3x increase in conversions basically the day after we launched. And I think the story here, right, is that throughout this process, first of all, we still haven't added any incremental work to our production team. We still have the same 2 engineers that are working on mobile, right? And we've gotten a pretty aggressive sort of product build out of these guys. Now, what did I not talk about? I didn't talk about the stuff on the fringes that we don't include, right? So there's some other things, you know, as part of like investment that we just decided, hey, on mobile, these things don't matter. Our My Account area is not optimized for mobile. Social sharing is not optimized for mobile. In fact, in Pinterest, or in the mobile apps, we don't support Pinterest. We've got a custom social action that we use on site that we just said, you know what, these things are important. They are a part of our experience, but we'll leave that for desktop because we know people on mobile, you know, they're in a hurry, they're kind of doing these things, and the most important thing for us to fix right now is getting people to purchase. We're taking all these shots on goal with our customers, and we're missing them on mobile right now on the most important part of an e-commerce business, which is getting them to purchase. And so that's sort of how we thought about it. And interestingly, as a part of this process, we've not just learned how do we bring our desktop site and experience and brand experience to the mobile device in a way that tells the brand story consistently, but we're starting to see the way that mobile is actually impacting customers' overall shopping behavior, right? So how have mobile app shopping paradigms changed what people are expecting on desktop? So you can see we've got a couple screenshots. They're kind of hard to make out, but we've moved to a very modal-driven shopping experience on desktop because of how well it's worked on app. We're trying our hardest to keep customers in the shopping context no matter where they are on the site. So you can see someone's on the product page here, and they can actually check out in that modal on the site. And if they don't want to check out, no harm, no foul. They click off, they're still on the product page. And that modal follows you anywhere on the site. So you can be in the browse, you can be on home. No matter where you are, we're not taking you to a dedicated checkout page. We're leaving you basically in the shopping experience. And actually, that idea, in theory, was kind of stolen from the Apple store, where you can both browse and the guys come to you wherever you are and they swipe your little card on your device and all of a sudden you're $750 lighter. We want to sort of recreate that experience on web. We brought over infinite scroll, which is something that really started with phones and tablets, where once you get to the bottom of the page, you just keep going. So now when you're in one event and you get to the bottom, no problem. We'll keep sending you on to the next event. And part of this is, you know, sometimes the mobile learnings don't actually work as much. So we've recently tried launching, again, sort of hard to make out, but instead of taking someone to a product details page, when you click on the product image, we'll roll out a tray underneath, right, that shows you the product details. It's pretty common on iOS to sort of see this. Didn't work. So we're still trying to fix it. But again, like, this is part of the sort of product development process, getting things out in the market and testing them. And the results have been strong. So right now, today, 40% of Joss & Main's business is conducted on mobile. Our goal is to get to over half in the next 12 months. So that's pretty much it. You know, to recap, think about what your customers are doing on their devices and develop around there, right? And in the most gracious way that low ROI is a failure, remember, you've got 2 sort of ways to approach that. You can either really juice the return, or you can really minimize the investment, or ideally do both. In a sort of bootstrap resource constraint way, that's how we got through our mobile development process. Thanks.